أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of God, the most gracious, most merciful. Welcome to our video series, Migration 313. My name is Jason Smart, or Abu Hadi, and I'll be going through with you this lecture series, which is to explain the basics of Islam to non-Muslims. Now, in the last video, we went over the concept of migration. What does it mean to migrate? In order to migrate, you have to know where you are, and then you have to know where you're going. And how do you know where, and spiritually, how do you know where you are? Well, we said in the video, the main way that you know where you are is what do you worship? So just as what we worship means to emulate, to look towards. What do you emulate? What do you look towards? When you get up in the morning, what do you think about? When you go to sleep at night, what do you think about? What is it that you're always trying to get something from? What is it that you feel passionate about? So, if we want to look at my own experience growing up as kind of an illustration to you about this concept. When I was growing up, like I said, I wasn't raised in a Muslim family. I was raised in a Christian family in the United States. And when I was growing up, I grew up like any typical teenager. I would go to school and I would look around me and see what those around me were doing. I would watch TV, I would listen to music, I would go to movies, I would go and hang out with my friends, go to parties and things like that. And I would look at what they were doing, okay? And I thought, what is it that these people are doing? What is the purpose? What are they, when they wake up in the morning, what do they think about? What are they trying to get to? What's the goal they're trying to get to? And I looked at their behavior, and I saw most of the people around me, they didn't really give much thought to what they were doing. They basically just did whatever came to their mind, whatever their desire said to them, whatever they saw people around them doing. So if I would go to class and the guys said, oh yeah, we're going to go after school and we're going to go skateboarding, I would go, and I thought, okay, maybe this is the thing, maybe this is the goal of what I'm trying to get to. They would go, talk to girls, they would go to parties, they would go out drinking, they would do all this stuff. I said, yeah, okay, that's what they're doing. It must be okay, it must be the right thing to do, because they're doing it. So what are these people worshiping? What they're worshiping is two things. They're worshiping the people around them, because what they're thinking is, in their mind, they're thinking, okay, these people around me are doing this and this and this, so it must be okay. Whatever they do, I'm going to do. They're my goal. They're my objective. I want to please them. I want them to like me. So that's my goal. So whatever they do, I'm going to do it. And the other thing is, the second thing that they worship is they're looking at their desires. They sit in class and they see something passing in front of their eyes. Maybe it might be a nice car. Maybe it might be a girl in a short skirt. Whatever it is, they look at this thing and they're thinking, this is the thing I want. This is the thing that's going to make me happy. This is the thing that's going to give me pleasure and satisfaction. So they're going after that thing. And by the way, this is what most people do. Not just in the United States, but in most other countries. And they live their life that way. They live their life that way. They have a term for it in the United States. They call them consumers. They consume. And they produce, they earn money so they can consume. And then they earn more money and they consume. And this is what they do. They're caught in this cycle of just looking what other people are doing, chasing after their desires, and consuming, producing, and consuming. And that's what they do. And they look to those things, and this is the object of their hope. Maybe if I produce enough, maybe if I have enough money, maybe if I consume enough things, then I'll be happy. So they worship that thing in hopes of getting something from it, in hopes of getting desire, in hopes of getting satisfaction, in hopes of meeting their goals of being a happy, contented person. But what happens is, or what I found anyway, is it doesn't work like that. The more you produce, the more you consume, the more you get tired, and then the more you look at those things that you used to look at and think, these things don't give me as much pleasure. For example, when you're a kid and you start drinking alcohol, and at first, in order for you to get, a buzz or whatever, you just have to drink maybe a half a bottle of beer. But then, as you get older, and you keep drinking, you have to drink more and more and more to get that same thing. And then eventually, no matter how much you drink, you're not going to get it. And it's the same thing with the other, pleasures of this world, the satisfaction of other people. As you get older, you start to care less about that. You don't care, what does this person think of me? What does that person think of me? Okay, so that kind of fades away. All these things that when you're a teenager, you think, this is it. This is what I want to do. With time, it fades away and it loses its meaning. So, are those things worthy of worship? So when I was an older teenager, maybe 19, 20, I started to think, maybe this isn't the way to go. Maybe these aren't the things that are going to bring me pleasure and satisfaction. And then the third part of the equation was, when I was, like I told you in the last video, I was in a car accident when I was 19 years old. And after the car accident, which I was almost killed, and I thought, if this is it, if this is, you produce, you consume, you chase after this, you chase after that, you go after this person, and then any second it could just be over just like that. And then I thought, so what's the point then? What's the point of going on in this cycle of things? So I started to think maybe there's something outside of that. Now we'll turn back to the concept of worship. So we say in Islam, we say that worship, it's called ibadah, the Arabic term. And the term ibadah in Arabic, it means something that your abid in Arabic is the word for slave. So what are you a slave towards? And in English, the word slavery, it has a bad history, and that's a whole other subject. But it's not talking about, it's saying slavery in the sense that what do you subjugate yourself to? What do you bow down in front of? What are you always looking to obey? Okay? Whatever that thing is, that's what you worship. Okay? So we say in order to do ibadah, in order to worship, you don't even have to believe in God. For example, an atheist, somebody who's an atheist, even though they don't believe in God, they do worship. In fact, we say, an atheist, when they're looking towards, they look at Darwin, they look at the theory of evolution, they look in the universe, and they look in biology and other things, and they look for randomness here and randomness there. They're always trying to show that the universe is random, that there's no purpose, that there's no God. So that concept that they have, that there's no God, the universe is completely random, okay, that is what they worship. That's the thing that they worship. They said that, not everybody worships God, but everybody worships something. So, we have this ayah in the Quran. It says, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسِ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. So God is telling us in the Quran, there's a lot of things around that people worship. But me, God, the one who created everything in the universe, I created you to worship me, to do ibadah to me, and not to anything else. So if you're worshiping your desire, or you're worshiping what people think of you, you're worshiping the concept that there's no God, or you're worshiping money, or you're worshiping other people. This worship that you're doing, this ibadah that you're doing, is not going to do you any good. It's not going to bring you anything. All it's going to do is frustrate you and make you tired, and you'll always be in darkness and wandering around and bumping into things and not sure. So the purpose of creation, according to God, is to worship Him. So when we say worship, we'll go back to the term ibadah. Worship has many aspects. There's many aspects to worship. We don't say in Islam that some Muslims understand it this way, but they say ibadah, worshiping God, is only fasting, praying, giving charity, going to Hajj, doing those things. That's part of it. That is part of it. But there's many other aspects of worship. For example, hugging your kids could be worship. Having relations with your wife or your husband, that can also be worship. Other things can be worship. Eating dinner with your family can be worship. Going to work can be worship. Those other things, if your intention is correct. If you're doing it saying, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or God, I'm worshiping you, and I'm doing this thing because I know it'll please you, and I'm doing this thing because I'm looking towards you, and I'm trying to obey you. The concept of ibadah in Arabic, it means worship, and it also means obedience. It's the same thing, so it's the same word, which is very interesting to some people. So in other words, you can't worship something without obeying it, obeying that thing. And you can't obey that thing totally and completely all the time without also worshiping it. So those two things are connected. Also, those things done not for the sake of God and not in His direction, without the intention of worship, are useless and meaningless. Just like if you turn your attention towards other things other than God, it's meaningless. You don't get it. You might get some very short-term, ephemeral benefit out of it, but you'll end up losing more than you're gaining from it. And if you do something and you end up losing more than you're gaining and losing more than you're gaining and you're getting in a loss, you better look at that thing and you better say, am I worshiping the right thing? Am I acting in the right way? And hopefully one of the purposes of this video series is to get people to think, to examine your life, to take that thing that you're used to doing every day, producing and consuming, all these habits that you have every single day, and just take 5-10 minutes out and examine it and turn it over in your hand and look at it and say, this thing that I'm spending all this time and all this energy doing, why am I doing it? What is it benefiting me? What am I getting out of it? Some people might say they worship American culture. So they say, because I'm an American, I can't be Muslim. Because Muslims are, those people from the Middle East and Bangladesh and the Philippines and other countries like that. I'm American. I was born here. I was born in Texas, or I was born in Los Angeles. I was born in New York. I was born in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I can't be Muslim. So what you're doing is, what you're saying at that point is, I'm worshiping my culture, being American. I'm placing that above God. Because if Islam is the truth from God, then you shouldn't have any problem with it, no matter where the message originally came from. And it's because everybody has an inner nature, their inner fitra, that they're always seeking their Creator. So it is this fitra, we call it fitra in Arabic, the inner nature, it's leading you, it's always leading you towards God. And if you don't follow it, if you worship other things, then you're rebelling against your own self. That's why it says in the Quran, it says many, many times, it says, the people who turn away from the worship of God, who go and they worship other things, they're not harming God. In fact, they're harming their own self, because you're rebelling against your inner nature, and ultimately this will lead to all sorts of problems which we see in this society, in American society, which is, you open the paper every day, you see mass killings, shootings, drug addiction. You see most of the families in this country are destroyed. Most of the mothers who raise their kids by themselves. All kinds of problems, and nobody would look at those things and say, oh, those are good things, we want those things in our society. No, we don't want those things in our society, but how do we solve it? You solve it through, it's not going to be solved overnight, but you solve it towards going towards your inner nature and listening to that thing inside you, the thing inside everybody that said, you're a creation of God, and you're created in order to worship God. And if you go towards that, you turn away from the things that you worship that are false, then eventually you'll be led down to the right road. And thank you all, and Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace be upon all of you.